Hey BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I'm gonna do a reading update. I don't have as many days off as I said before because of, it's the holiday season, and this is the biggest eating season of the year. So a lot of people will be going grocery shopping, so they want to schedule as many people as they can during November and December months. And I try to film these videos on days I have off, or at least if I'm going in like late afternoon, then I might film. But I know how much I like to talk in these videos, so I try not to do too many videos when I have to go to work later on in the afternoon. But so I am not doing too well on Tome Topple. I am surprisingly doing pretty good on the nonfiction November. I mean, I've only read one book for it. I wanted to do the Disney biography, but that's a over 500 plus book, which I'll actually be perfect for Tome Topple because it actually is 500 plus pages, not counting the acknowledgments and the bibliography and all that stuff, which was annoying because it was like on Goodreads it says 500 plus 512 pages, but then I realized the other 100 or so pages is just bibliographies and acknowledgments and all that, and I am not going to waste my time. I mean, I understand you need to, I hope this doesn't come off as disrespectful to what the acknowledgments that they're giving and the bibliography and acknowledging the resources that they used. But I mean, I don't think anyone ever reads that kind of stuff. I mean, I do remember there was someone, it might have, that I heard that actually will read cover to cover, including that stuff, which I find is like, really. I mean, I don't mean to mock them or be like you're weird, but it is a bit odd to me that you would read the whole, like, including that part. I mean, I understand if you need to look at it, go through it for, like, if you're doing a paper for school or something. Or, like, you're a journalist and you need to cite where you got your information, then yeah. But anyway, and I mean, I'm still reading some tomes. I mean, I am reading a little bit for Tome Topple, but not as much as I would have liked to. But again, this is the worst month to have a readathon like that because I'm working a lot, and then I have that one Tome Topple and nonfiction November going on. So the good news is that the readathon I'm thinking about doing that's coming up in December, it's only one readathon, and I probably won't do any other ones. Like I have never done the what is it called, the Bookmas readathon that like a lot of booktubers do every year. I just normally, the only readathons I like to do are the ones that are the whole month, or they're at least 2 weeks at the shortest, because I don't like the pressure of having to get a certain amount of books done within a week, and even if they're short, because I'm a slow reader, and I don't, like I said, I don't like the pressure, and I don't want to just read, and I want to be able to read bigger books, and I feel like with those week-long readathons, you can't really do that. At least with Tome Topple, even though it's still, like, it's only one extra week, there's no, like, I feel like there's still not a lot of pressure because Sam from Thoughts and Tomes knows that she's asking us to read big books that could potentially take longer than a week, depending on the kind of reader you are. So, I mean, in fact, some of them would take longer than 2 weeks, unless you're so close to you decide to choose a book that you're close to the end of the book and that's why you chose it, because you could get it done really fast. But, the books I intended that I've been reading on and off for Tome Topple are this one, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norwell, and I picked this one because Reagan from Peruse Projects had mentioned this. Whenever a booktuber mentions a book that I've been reading on and off, that I've been wanting to read, and I bought it so that I could eventually read it, then I'm like, oh crap, I get to get back and read that book. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should do that one for Tome Topple because it is a tome, as you can tell. So I haven't really progressed. I just talked about it in my last one of my maybe not the last update video, but the update video before that, I think. I don't know, but where we met, we were introduced to Jonathan Strange. And we did come back to Lady Pole a little bit, which I think she was mentioned. She's kind of caught in the middle of this, like the older servants that work for her new husband don't get along with the new servants who are from like a different part of England, and they kind of make fun of them and mock them, make them look bad. And they have talked to Lady Pole about it, and she doesn't know what to do and how to handle that situation. And her husband's like, well, I will send my main servant to deal with it because he's really good at this kind of stuff, and I can't remember his name. And he deals with it. And then what's weird is the last chapter I read, some of the servants were struggling with doing the work because they would hear something weird, like strange music, or they would see someone in the window. And of course the guy was like, that's hogwash, he didn't actually use that word. But that's probably just your imagination, or there's always some logical explanation. Of course this is a magical realism fantasy book. I don't know if this would be considered magical realism or not. I mean, it's weird because I just like books that, I don't use the term magical realism that often. In fact, I didn't start using that term really until I started reading Neil Gaiman books, and he has a couple of books that are considered magical realism. So I guess magical realism is a subgenre of fantasy where you're in the real world, and there's magical elements in the real world. Which, I'm confused. I have to look that up. But does that mean paranormal is considered part of magical realism? Like maybe it's a subgenre of magical realism? There's so many subgenres. It's very confusing. Like you need like a map to figure out what are the subgenres of each genre. Some of them are a little easier than others. But like you have like so many different versions of horror books, so many different versions of fantasy books, and nonfiction is probably the easiest genre to remember everything because I feel like there's so few subgenres of nonfiction. I was actually just thinking about this because there is a nonfiction tag going around, and I'm for Nonfiction November that Olive created, but I'm not doing it because I have barely read any nonfiction, so I don't have any answers for those questions. But I was watching people who have done the tag, and I can't remember who it was, but one of them was saying how she feels like she was like asking, are there really subgenres of nonfiction? So it got me thinking, what would be considered a subgenre of nonfiction? And I think, like I said, that's the easiest one to find the subgenres for, because you could say memoirs is a subgenre, biographies and autobiographies are its own subgenre, history books / textbooks, and like self-help books, it's another one. And then I think there's one that's I guess that's part of history. I'm trying to true crime. I feel and I think that's all of them that could potentially be considered subgenres of nonfiction. But I say this because I feel like that's the easiest one to figure out what the subgenres are of that overall genre. But anyway, so like I've been reading this on and off at work, and it's kind of hard to read this at work because, like I said before, I only get a 15-minute break, and the break room is all the way in the back, and then it's not like I'm gonna go outside I don't have a car to go out to, and I'm not gonna in my bag with my little snack, like I always make a sandwich and sometimes throw a banana or Cheez-Its in there. And that's upstairs, so I still have to go back there anyway, so there's no point in going back there and then coming back up to the front. That would just waste time. So I just stay back there, and then, it takes me a little, unless I walk really fast, I'm wasting like 5 minutes to get back there and sit down, and then before I know it, I have to come back to the floor and do my job again. I have just enough time to eat, maybe read a page or two of the book I brought. I stopped reading Rebecca because I wasn't progressing very fast in that one, which that's another one I need to get to, but I might come back to that. at the end of the month in December. Which is another book to add to my TBR. I was just thinking about that. There are so many, I mentioned that there's a readathon. It's the fantasy-a-thon, and there's so many fantasy books. It's like, I want to read them, and I'm all excited. Oh, I gotta come back to this one. Oh, I gotta read this book in this series, or like, I started this one a while back, so I gotta continue with it. Oh, this book is also diverse, and this book is diverse too, and there's like so many choices that I cannot narrow down, and I keep wanting to, I'm like, I can't decide, so why not read all of them? And then this is another one that I gotta work on. But there's just, I'm a very indecisive person when it comes to deciding what books to read. I mean, eventually I can settle on a book that I want to focus most of my attention on. But, and then there's that, along with, I wanted to read the two Gregory Maguire books in December. The book Lost, which is about a woman where her great uncle her uncle or her great uncle had inspired the Scrooge, Charles Dickens, to create Scrooge. And then there's some mysterious killer that's connected to Jack the Ripper or something, or like so there's like references to both Jack the Ripper and A Christmas Carol in the story. So I thought that would be kind of an interesting Christmas novel to read, although the Jack the Ripper would not fit the Christmas thing. It would have fit more in October, and of course I get interrupted right when I'm making my video. But again, I can't really complain because I kind of just decided to make this video, and I did not tell her that I was going to make this video. But anyway, and then I wanted to read, I think, Hindensee or Hiddensee or Hiddensee. I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's a German title, but it's a Gregory Maguire book where he, it's kind of a retelling, but it's more like an origin story, basically telling how the Nutcracker became the Nutcracker, like an origin story of the Nutcracker. So that, I think, is definitely perfect for Christmas time. And dig my teeth in my. I just did that. I just dug my tooth into my lining. Kind of hurt for a second there. But anyway, I'm also, for Tome Topple, I'm also reading. Really? That was not hard. That's the problem with my Apple products seem to feel like they need to alert me twice and be like, remember, don't forget, this person just texted you. You need to look at this message, like, right now. That's what it feels like whenever I hear the little noise, the little alert that says I have a text. It does it twice. And sometimes it's because the person, which most of the time it's Terry, because, I mean, that's not, it's more because she just is the only person I really talk to the most, other than my family. Unless unless, like, I'm messaging someone at work, or one of my two other best friends. But Terry and I talk more than, I even talk to her more than I talk to the two of them. But that's because they're both very busy, so, but yeah, it's, like, sometimes she has messaged me twice, but other times it's just really, I think, the device is letting me know twice, and be like, don't forget to check. It's kind of annoying, because all of a sudden I'll hear this sound, and it just ruins the little cuteness of the tone I picked. So I keep wanting to change it, because it's, like, hearing it several times a day does get a little irritating. And that's not Terry's fault. I mean, she has no idea that, but anyway, so enough with me complaining. I'm also reading The Goldfinch World. I am definitely progressing more in this one, it feels like. Although it might be about the same amount of pages. But, like I said, Theo has lost his mom in the bombing at the museum. And he's living with the wealthy family of this boy that he grew up with, or that he goes to school with, and they're sort of fair weather friends. I think that's the term. And okay, yeah, that's in this case just my stupid device being like, don't forget to check. But and then he remembered that he was given something by the old man he found in the bombing that was barely alive. So he goes to visit this guy and his friend, and they like own a shop or something, and his daughter survived, but she's badly wounded. So, and Theo goes to see them. He tries to go back to his normal life. People keep trying to feed him, and he's like, I'm not hungry. Trying to explain to him. He's like grieving. He's struggling with his grief and the fact that he just lost his mother, and he's still reeling. And of course, people are like trying to ask him questions, and the detectives are trying to ask him, what happened? Do you remember anything? And he doesn't, because he's so shocked and feels so overwhelmed. And people that care about him, like the family he's staying with, they try to be like, you need to eat, and they try to be understanding and sympathetic and try to give him advice, and and he's just like, that's, it's just like, it's not helping. I'm grieving. I just want people to leave me alone and back off. And so he goes to see this guy, and this is where I am right now, and he's talking to him, and this is probably the only person that he actually doesn't mind talking to, and the guy's just asking him questions about himself, not asking him about what happened, asking if he remembers anything, although that's how it started, the conversation, but now he's just asking him about his life and what his interests are. And he asked to go see the girl because they had this eye contact connection, not like they just saw each other, and there was kind of a connection there. So he wants to see her, and he wants to make sure she's okay. And that's the last part I read, because I started getting hungry, so I ended up taking a break for lunch. So he's gonna go see the girl, and she's not doing well. She's severely injured. She can't move or anything, so she's in bed, and she has scars and all of that. And, she's struggling with the fact that she's just realized that her dad or grandfather, I can't remember, is gone. I don't remember how old the guy is. I don't know if he's her grandfather. I think he might be her grandfather. I don't know. Or her uncle. No, actually I think he's her uncle, because her mom was his half-sister. That's right, because the guy just said that. The guy told Theo that the man, his friend, his partner, whatever, was that the girl that he's a guardian of, her mom was his half-sister. That's right. Totally forgot. So, that's where I am with this one. I love Donna Tartt's writing. I hope she writes another book soon. But that's good, because I'm not even at the half point of this one, and I still gotta read the Little Friend by her. But I do hope she writes another book. And I'm guessing she's gonna be one of those authors who writes a handful of standalones, but not a lot, which I almost prefer that, because it makes, unless it's a fantasy author, with the authors of fiction, I kind of prefer that they just write a handful of books, because then they're more special and there's not as much of a back catalog to get to. But that's why I don't like some authors like James Patterson, where he keeps writing more and more books, and they all feel almost, granted, actually, I probably shouldn't use the word all, because I did stop reading, and I've only read one of his series. Well, almost two, because I did attempt to read Witch and Wizard, because Larissa got me the first book for my birthday, which was really awesome of her. Don't get me wrong, it's just, at that point, I kind of stepped away from James Patterson, which she didn't know, in her defense. I had stopped reading James Patterson because the guy that I attempted to date was telling me, when he took me to Borders, I believe it was Borders. Well, yeah, it had to be. Or Books A Million before. Borders is what it used to be. When he took me there, he was talking about how, James Patterson, he has a ghostwriter now. He doesn't write his own books anymore. And that just really bugged me. Because, if you're gonna write, you should be the one to do the writing. I know it's not an easy profession to do, writing, but still, you should be the one writing your books. If you're gonna crank out a whole bunch of books, then have the nerve to write your own books. Stephen King and Brandon Sanderson don't, as far as I know, they don't have a problem with it. They write their own books. But, and they have no problem cranking out books all the time. But anyway, so like I said, I haven't gone very far, but her writing is so beautiful and so descriptive. She comes up with very interesting metaphors in describing things. I feel so bad because like Theo is talking to this guy and having an actual good conversation with someone he hasn't had a conversation like this for a long time. And then his friend, he's doing it because he cares about him, keeps texting him, being like, asking where he is. And Theo's like, okay, I don't want to deal with you right now. So he's ignoring the text. But then the next message Andy sends is, just think it's sure you're not being killed! Explanation mark. It doesn't actually say, it just shows it. But, yeah, it's like, on the one hand, it's like, again, he shows that he cares about him, but on the other hand, if you're someone going through that, thankfully I never had this experience, or at least, well, I have, but it is a little different when it's your parent versus your grandparent. I think but grief is grief no matter what, and we all deal with grief differently, but it was Theo and his mom for the longest time, so this is really just the fact that people keep being so overbearing and so like up in his face, trying to get him to talk to him and remember this horrible event where he lost his mother forever, and being like, you need to eat something. It's like, because they care, but then at the same time, it's like, just, you're not helping me. I get that you care about me, but you're not helping me. I just lost my mother. I'm still in shock, and we all grieve differently. Now, it kind of reminds me of in Buffy season 6. If you haven't watched Buffy, something happens to her. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna spoil for Buffy. She dies at the end of season 5, and she comes back, and she's been resurrected by Willow and the gang. And they in the previous episode, they had found out what they had realized that they brought her back from heaven, because they originally thought they brought her back from hell, that she was suffering because, and it makes sense that they would think that, because she basically helped she killed herself to close a hell dimension, so her sister wouldn't have to. And so naturally they're going to assume she was trapped in a hell dimension. So they brought her back, and of course now that she's back, she's left heaven, which is supposed to be this paradise, this wonderful place where you're at peace, you're finally at peace, you're happy, you're content, you get to see all your loved ones again. And they all of a sudden pull her back. So she's kind of going through this sort of grief herself, but she's also trying to be okay for her friends, because they were just trying to bring her back. They thought she was trapped in hell, and they really care about her. And so they finally find out about it through the worst way possible, although it was one of the best episodes. It's the most fun episode, one of the most fun episodes. And she, they're trying to talk to her in the next episode and explain, they were like, and they keep asking if she's okay, and she's like, and they're like, we're sorry, we're just worried about you, and she's like, basically, yeah, everybody's sorry, and she's starting to get upset, and she's like, I get it, everybody's sorry, and everyone's like, she's really getting kind of annoyed and angry at this point. It's like, you're all sorry, but you brought me back from heaven, I was finally at peace, and then you bring me back to this harsh, cruel reality. And that, it kind of reminds me, it feels kind of the same as this, that he just lost his mother, and everyone's trying to help him and make him feel better and trying to get him to make sure he doesn't hurt himself or punish himself or anything like that, or, trying to heal him. And it's like, okay, back off, I just need some time. And you're not helping me by being all up in my face. I feel like it's kind of the same as on Buffy. So, but I haven't even got to the art part. I have, but it's barely been talked about. Like, it was mentioned where he said he still had the art piece and he was debating about telling the police everything, but then he was just feeling so overwhelmed. The police were so overbearing, asking him if he remembered anything, that like totally slipped his mind. So I haven't heard about the art piece, but I'm sure I'll hear about it again at some point. But I feel like books like this, when it's something where there's this something like this kind of symbolic thing, it's not mentioned throughout the whole book. It's just mentioned in sporadically in the book, but it's not like. Yep, I am having a time. I haven't read Harry. I haven't continued with Harry Potter yet. Book 7. I need to continue. I don't want the same mistake to happen again. Like especially like when I went the 5th book, where I ended up having to start over anyway. I mean, not that I got like far into the book, but I don't want to have to start over. So I will get back to it. It might not happen until December, but I kind of wanted to get it read before January, but that might not happen. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let me first talk about these two, and then I'll talk about the library books, and then I'll talk about books that I just bought today, because of course I go to the bookstore and I just have to buy 2 books. There actually were 2 sales going on. There's a holiday sale, which is buy one Christmas book you get with the other one free. But I get them for Harrison and Daniel, kids Christmas books, but I don't like getting them for myself because it's like you're only gonna read them once a year, so it's like what's the, I would just get rid of them after I read them anyway. I would, like I said, I would rather just watch a Christmas movie on TV or something rather than get a Christmas. But I did continue to read a little bit more of Rose Madder by Stephen King. Finally, Rose has gone into the place where she was directed to by the guy at the bus station. After like getting lost and running into people who are like, "Get out! What are you doing here?" Kind of attitude. Or there was a drunk guy at the bar who tried to harass her. Was like flirting with her, and she was like freaking out. And of course, this whole time in the book, she's thinking, she's worried about. Like, she doesn't want to deal with the police because her husband is a cop and she's had enough of cops for one lifetime. And she's just so skittish and so terrifying. Like, she has such negative thoughts. Like, she gets to the place where they all batter a woman and she keeps thinking that these people are gonna. Which I totally understand the situation, trying not to cry, but then you start crying, it starts coming and you can't control it. And you're trying to hold it back, and I definitely get that feeling of, trying not to cry, or at least trying to hold it back. If you do start, like, trying to, suck it back in, and you can't help it. You can't control it. It's just a waterfall of, salty tears, and, but she gets there to this place, and she keeps thinking they're gonna kick her out, or, they're only gonna let her stay for the night, but then she's not gonna go, but then they're gonna be like, okay, you need to go. Or like, the woman mentioned to her, you could, at the longest, you could probably stay 8 weeks. Or you can even stay longer. But she's, most women only stay for 8 weeks at the longest. And she's surprised. She's like, 8 weeks? And she was thinking in her head, the woman's gonna correct me and say, no, 8 days. Were you crazy? You're not gonna stay 8 weeks here. So she always assumes the worst. Like, I feel so bad for this woman that she's just so used to getting the short end of the stick, which is putting it nicely, and expecting that people will reject her, turn her down or whatever, and be like, what are you doing? Get out of here. Which at first she does receive that response from the people on the street that she sees when she's asking them for help. So this is another one I'm slowly progressing through, basically. So that's all I read, is that she got to the halfway house for battered women, and they're very much, they're more than willing to help her out, and she's got a job. The other thing is they get her a job at a hotel, or like a motel probably, and the woman that she meets, Miss Stevenson. She reminds her of Maud from Golden Girls. I can't remember who Maud is. I think Maud is the tall one. That's who I was assuming it was, so that's what I kept picturing this woman looking like. I think. But I don't remember. I don't watch Golden Girls that often. I watched it, but not a lot. Yeah, it's so hard though to read because I'm like, you know, I get so frustrated because she just assumes the worst. And I feel so sorry for her character that she's just so used to the worst happening. And then I'm like I said, I'm actually surprisingly getting very far in this one nonfiction book that I'm reading. And it's so interesting reading about New York as it progressed and watching each mile as it develops and how it progressed. And I just read a chapter where we talked about Poe and how and apparently Poe moved a lot. Like he has tried to stay in New York quite a few times, but then it never seemed to work out. And I think I kind of had an idea, but this guy did not do well with his career, with his writing career. Like he didn't, he was not as praised as he is. He wasn't as loved as he is today. And he wasn't as his works weren't considered as popular. His most popular work was The Raven. Other than that, he was treated like he was a hack or something. And then it didn't help that he had a drinking problem. But yeah, we talked about that. Let's see. Let me look at the chapters. Hopefully that will refresh my memory. The chapter titles, just so I can have something to say to you guys about it. Let's see. So the last chapter I read was like about an asylum that was made. That the man who created this asylum was, instead of going the more brutal method of helping patients, or actually helping patients, he opts for a more gentler method of taking care of patients and helping them get better. But there was this one guy who was like totally again wanting to get rid of the asylum so they could continue to develop knocking down the asylum so they could continue to develop this part of New York. There's a whole case on it and everything. They kept going to court, back and forth in court. Let's see. We talked about when electricity first started coming, which there is actually a movie coming out, or is out, starring Benedict Cumberbatch. Tom Holland plays a character. Tom Holland's in it. What is his? I can't think of the other actor's name. He's a British actor, probably closer to my age or my sister's age, maybe even Terry's age. I can't think of his name. He played Beast in X-Men First Class. I can't think of it. And he was the guy in the Jack and the Beanstalk live action movie. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name. I'm sure someone out there remembers it, but there was one guy who owned like a hotel that he had a barnyard on the roof of the hotel or something. I think there was a really big, one of the chapters talked about there was this huge Jewish population, but they kept getting kicked out. Like, the Jews were the first people in the Harlem area, the Jewish people, but then black people started taking over, like, coming to that community, and the Jewish people got kicked out, and they kept having to move to different parts of New York, the Jewish community. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So there's just so much I'm reading I'm not really good at. I mean, I think because I don't read a lot of nonfiction, so it's so many facts, but it's definitely more interesting to read than a textbook, that's for sure. But yeah, if you love learning about the history of New York, I definitely think you should check this book out. By the way, I did not realize. Okay, so the author's name is Fran Leiden. Leiden. I did not realize that Fran is actually a guy. I thought Fran was a girl, like Francis, but nope, Fran is a guy. So, I did not know that. I guess it's short for Frank or Francis. which Francis is one of those names I feel like it's a non-sex name, so it can be, there's a better word for that, those kinds of names. But it's a name that can be both, Francis can be a name for both boys and girls, which actually just reminds me, I've just finished reading Rules of Magic, which I just realized in the last video, I kept calling it History of Magic, and I guess I was getting mixed up with the title of the textbook that Hermione Granger's constantly reading. But no, it's called Rules of Magic. It's the prequel by Alice Hoffman, and it's the prequel to Practical Magic, which reminds me, one of the library books I got was actually Practical Magic. Which this is one that I have read. I had a paperback copy, is the one with the shoe on the boot, on the boot heel cover on it. I used to have that one, but I ended up getting rid of it at the time because it was like, oh, I have the movie, so I'll just watch the movie a lot on repeat. And I had no idea that she was going to write the prequel. That was years ago, so. But here is the original Practical Magic that I got from the library, which, she's kind of pretty. But the prequel, as other people have said, I was looking at reviews for the book, Rules of Magic, and some people were saying you don't absolutely have to read that book before you read, like you can read that one as a standalone, or, like, I feel like with prequels, you could read them either before or after you read the original book that was published. Because they are prequels, so they were written after, so if they made it so that you had to read them before, then why did this one, the original, come out first before that one, which is supposed to be a prequel? Prequels are like, it's a sequel, but it was about the events prior or pre the original book. So I feel like you can either get away with it, you can either read it, you can have read this one and not have to read that other one first, or you can read that other one first. But I think you can also count it as a standalone. But I think once you read it, knowing that it has a sequel, or has an original book that came before, depending on, then I would think you would almost want to read it. Because it's about characters that were mentioned in Practical Magic that didn't play as big of a role. And that's the aunts to the two main characters in this one, Sally and Jillian. The two aunts were Frances and Jet, or Bridget, as she's referred to in the, she's referred to Jet, but they say Jet is short for Bridget. That they were the ones that raised these girls in this story, and it turns out they have a brother. Which actually makes sense. Because, I don't know, I wouldn't think that they would have another sibling, because they are these girls' aunt. The main girls in this novel. This is a beautiful cover, but it doesn't, I feel like I like the other cover better with the high heel boot. I like that cover better. This one doesn't really fit as much as, from what I remember, at least from watching the movie anyway. But, so in that one we learn their story of them growing up in the 1960s New York, and how their mom, Susanna Owens, tried to keep them from magic, being aware of magic, and that they were witches. But they grew up knowing that they were somewhat different. They just didn't know they were witches until Franny turned 17, and they receive a message from their aunt Isabel, who lives in Boston, Massachusetts, that it's time for Franny to come visit her because she is of age. And both her siblings, Vincent and Jet, go with her because their mom and dad are worried about her going by herself to her aunt's place, because her mom's basically resigned to the fact that, unfortunately, I can no longer keep my children away from this. So they all go and they spend the summer learning about who they are. They learn about the curse in the family, which is that an Owens cannot, if they love someone, then that someone will die. I don't know if that applies to just. I think that's just romantic love. Yeah, because love, I feel like it applies to platonic love between two friends or family members, but I think it's romantic love. So the three of them all agreed to stay away from love, but of course all three of them end up finding love in the end. But of course things get messy and it doesn't entirely work out for either of them. The way, or at least the ideal way of working out. And it's such a beautifully written novel. I mean, there were times when it felt a little more tell than show. That's the only negative that I feel like that there's. Other than that, the book was great. The characters were incredibly interesting. The new and younger versions of old characters we were introduced to in this book. And I guess another criticism is I feel like there was one character that we didn't get to know, and we didn't get to know as much as I would have liked to. They were just in there and like connected to one particular character. That's all I'm gonna say. I keep wondering if I spoiled it a little too much. Like I hinted at a little too much in my Goodreads review, but I can't take it back unless someone comments to me, But so I'm gonna try to be trying to be cryptic about mentioning this character. But other than that, the book's great. It was so cool to get to know younger versions of Francis, Jet, and then meeting the father or the grandfather of these two, of Sally and Jillian, who we get to meet in this book. It was kind of cool to meet him and get to know him. And there was some, LGBTQ representation. There was basically a gay character in the story, which I thought that was really cool. Which was and there was also, there's something else about that particular, I can't remember. Oh, something that's kind of bothered me is Vincent's, their brother is known, he's the baby brother. So, and when the book starts out, he's like 14, and he's kind of seen as a little bit of a charmer, and like he can charm a lot of women, and it kept making thinking of a succubus, or not a succubus, it's the female version, I can't remember what they're called. The male version of a succubus, there's a name for it, but I can't remember what it is. But, and at one point when he's staying with the aunt, he ends up meeting this older married woman, middle-aged woman, and she's immediately spellbound by this 14-year-old, and the two of them have sex. So that was a little weird for me. I mean, I don't think of myself as a prude, but that was a little bit much. I mean, it's fine if she had it where he was experiencing sex at a young age, at 14. I mean, it's still a little bit weird, but I was more willing to accept that than the fact that he was having intimacies with an old woman who was just unhappy in her marriage. To me, that was a little bit too much. I mean, so it was just a little too weird for me. It kind of made me uncomfortable. Like I said, I don't think of myself as a prude. Maybe some people think of me would think I'm a prude for feeling that way, but you know what? I can't help how I feel. I did not like it, and I don't, if you think I'm a prude, whatever, but I'm not gonna pretend otherwise. But other than that, it was a beautiful book. I really enjoyed it, and it was cool getting to know those characters and meeting the new characters. And now I'm going to reread Practical Magic. So you got from the library. And I'm gonna figure out. I'm gonna see if I do remember it being slightly different from the movie, but I don't remember exactly like how different, like. So, but I do remember it being different from the movie, which is not a surprise because, I mean, most of the time, books and movies are very different because you kind of have to. There's, most movies are 2 hours at the longest. There's things they just can't do in a movie that because of the book, there's very little limitations in a book. You can do whatever you want, so there are things but there are more limitations in a movie. And you're never gonna get an exact, and plus, it would be kind of boring if it was an exact carbon copy of the book. Like, it was a play-by-play exactly of the original book. But, so, since I'm talking about my library books, let me go ahead. So I got this one, and you already know that I have. So I returned the Alice Hoffman book. I did decide to DNF the Charles Dickens short stories collection. I just wasn't as into it. I prefer his longer novels. The short stories where they didn't have much of a plot. They were very, like, in the longest one, at that point I was just like, okay, I'm done. I mean, I love his writing and everything, but I'm just not feeling the short story, so I'm DNFing that. So you know that I got Edith Wharton's The Buccaneers. I need to get to that one, but, and then, you guys know I have also Sisters of the Winter Wood I want to get to, and then I end up, and then I got this, which is supposed to be about some of the characters in Game of Thrones, like one of the famous legends that's mentioned in the Game of Thrones series. Some famous knight. A knight. Duncan Egg. Sir Duncan and Talta. So, but yeah, it's about these guys. But like I said, I try to read these books in order. But then I also have to consider what books won't take me as long to read. So, but the Edith Wharton book is definitely going to come first. Once I get through. So, this one, which is The Bone Witch. YA books don't take me as long to read. The same with middle grade books. Which is about this girl, in this fantasy world, where magic is a regular thing, and this girl accidentally discovers she's a bone witch after bringing her brother back from the dead. And this other older bone witch shows up to take her on as an apprentice, and takes her to one of the other cities. And unfortunately, people are terrified of bone witches. There's all this prejudice against them because they think they're evil and work for the false prince, who's like a bad guy. And we also get a story set in the present where another girl's learning about, where our main character has now been a bone witch for a long time. And the flashbacks are the main story is her remembering how she became a bone witch. And there's this young woman learning, I think she's a young girl, has approached her and is asking. And of course, there is a hinted love triangle that's hinted at the book. I think we've met the two guys in the love triangle. Though I'm thinking it's the prince, and then this guy who approaches our main character, T. I don't know if it's Tia or Tia. I mean, if it's Tia or T. It's like pronounced like tea that you drink, or if it's Tia. But the other knight approaches Tia, and he's like, bone witches are evil, and I don't trust you, and I hate you, and you're responsible. A bone witch was responsible for my mother's death. So it's the same stupid mistake that people always. If I was an emotional mess and angry because my parents were killed by a bone witch, maybe I would feel this way. But it's the same mistake a lot of characters make when it's like, because someone of a group of people kills someone you love, so everybody who's part of that group is guilty. It's like, I hate everybody. They're all evil because this one particular one killed my mother or something. And it's like. So basically, this girl who you never met, who just found out she's a bone witch, you're just gonna automatically assume that, oh, you're evil, like she was, the one that killed my mother. But of course, I guess when people are an emotional wreck, and your loved one was murdered by someone from this group of people, you're just gonna be so emotional and angry that you're gonna automatically associate the whole group with the one, which, and I guess it's easier for me to see how stupid it is because I'm the audience. So I know that T is not, and that the Bone Witches are not bad guys necessarily. Some of them, like any other group, there can be bad people, there can be bad apples among groups. And so as the audience, of course, it's easy for me, and I'm not like emotionally like I didn't a bone witch did not kill my parents. So of course I'm unbiased. I'm like I can see it objectively, but it's pretty good. You know, the writing is pretty good. I'm liking T. I'm gonna call her T. I don't know if I'm supposed to pronounce how I'm supposed to pronounce it, but I like her. It's an interesting. I like that name. And I love this cover. I love the purple. I've always been a fan of purple in the skull, which is really creepy but really cool. I saw it in Necromancy and Alchemy were very interesting. I would love to write a character who does those. Like, I have been tempted to make one of the characters in a book that I hope to actually write, making them an alchemist or whatever they're called that, or whatever, necromancer. But anyway, I'm liking it so far. It's pretty good. So I ended up picking up this one because I decided to pick this one up because it's a YA book, so it won't take me as long to read. But I actually remember hearing about this on Goodreads a while back, but no one's talked about it since. So I don't know if that's a good sign, or I don't know if that's a bad sign or not. And I think next I am gonna go to, I'm also gonna start working on Neverseen, which is the 4th book in the Keeper of the Lost City series. And I just realized the author's gonna publish another book soon. That the next book is gonna come out soon. But I just love this series. This series is so much fun, and I want to take a break and read something more, because of Victober and all that. So it's been a while. It's been like 2 months now. So I decided I need to get back to it before I end up forgetting. But I'm really nervous not in a nervous as in, oh my god, but nervous as in, dang it, I don't want that. But I feel like I worry that, what is his name? Fitz is gonna be the ending. But because I kind of still like, although I can see where he might get frustrating too, but I like, I can't remember these characters' names. It's been so long, since I read this. It's been 2 months, so I just can't remember the names. The other guy, is it Felix? It's an F word, I think. Dex. I don't know where I got the F word. I guess I was mixing up, Fitz and Dex, and kind of thinking his name was Felix, but no, Dex. I kind of like him, although Keith, who I'm not gonna call Keithy, I don't like that. I find it like kind of, I don't know, that calling him Keithy, even though like people like Reagan had referred to him as Keithy, I don't like that. I think it's weird. I prefer calling him Keith. So, but Keith, there are times when Keith is the most appealing out of all the guys. He's the most likable because he's so much more laid back than the others, and he's not as like pushy or anything, and he's a little more like, it's easier for them to just have fun and just hang out with each other and be friends. Like the whole emotionalness, like one liking the other one but the other one not knowing it, doesn't get in the way with her and Keith because she doesn't like Keith, and he, even though I'm pretty sure he likes her in that way, he doesn't push it. He doesn't expect her to like him back that way. I mean, maybe he wishes she did, but he's not like Dex, where he's like, kind of pushes and kind of like, why don't you like me, and why do you keep spending so much time with Fitz? Of course, Keith's not as jealous as, even though he probably likes her too, he's not jealous. He doesn't have a reason to be jealous of Fitz, because the two of them are like brothers, and I don't think he's gonna let that get in the way. But I do appreciate that this series, it's more focused on the what Sophie's struggling with, like, in the drama and the responsibility and the whole conspiracy between the two groups and everything. Like, it's more focused on that problem rather than the relationship drama. Which Harry Potter kind of does go into more into that than this book series does. So, like, but, I mean, I don't know, maybe it is equal, I don't know. But again, because this is Milgrave, even though it's, like, look how big that book is. It's still, I also get through it a lot quicker because there aren't, like, even though there's a lot of chapters, most of them are short. And because it's Milgrave, the writing style is a little easier for me to read and get through faster. But, so I'm going to focus on those two, but I also need to focus on, but then, okay, so the other two most recent, other than, the other two books I think, okay, so this one was a book that we were supposed to read in that British literature class that I took 2 years ago. I believe it's been 2 years now. But we spent so much time on Canterbury Tales and discussing it and reading every single story to prepare for the test, which apparently referred to every single story, that we didn't get to this book, and we barely got to Hamlet, to the point of basically you were supposed to read it on your own within a few days, within a week or so, and then we took the final test. And it was like, the good news is I think the final test was only on Hamlet. But what I had wanted, first, I was excited to read Hamlet because I had been wanting to read it. I don't really get into, it's easier for me to get into Shakespeare and appreciate it either when I watch a movie version or we talk about it with the teacher and all of us students talk about it, and that did not happen. We did watch the movie, but the problem was when we were watching the movie, and it's the Kenneth Branagh one, which I do love, which I do really like, and I did put it on my Amazon wish list. People kept talking in the background. People use watching movies, and I'm not an Indian. I mean, I kind of figured that was going to happen. It was just still incredibly annoying. But people assume that once a teacher puts on the movie, then, ooh, that's cue for us to talk with each other because the teacher's no longer watching us. She's focused mostly on the movie. And it's like, okay, I was probably one of the few, there were probably maybe only 2 other people that actually appreciated the class and were actually interested. But even then that's debatable. But I was the only one probably that actually cared enough that I wanted to watch, that I was interested in the story, and I was engaged in it, and I wanted to talk about the play. But no, the rest of the kids didn't give a rat's ass. They were only there because they probably needed the credit. I mean, there might be, like I said, there might have been 2 people in that class that actually were interested in the class, but most of them, I guarantee you, were only in there because they needed to have the credit. Other than that, they didn't care. I mean, they cared enough that they knew they had to participate and pay attention enough to get a good grade or a decent grade. And it was just so annoying, and I didn't want to deal with someone getting, like, mocking me because I was glaring, because whenever people are, except for when it's my parents, whenever my peers are talking to me, I kind of give them the stink eye. And I didn't want to deal with them being, like, laughing at me about it and be like, you're so stupid. Oh, look at her. Oh, dude, she's all annoyed. Like, I didn't want to deal with that. And then, so I might glance for, like, a second, but I made sure that no one else, that I didn't do that. And then, like, I don't want to start a fight, or I'm not the kind of person who starts anything because I know what's going to happen. People are going to get in my face about it and stuff. But, so, we barely touched on Hamlet, which was really disappointing, but at least I could say I read it. So the final movie we were supposed to do, that was on the reading list that I thought we were going to cover, was Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. So I ended up seeing this one at the library. I was looking for classics, because lately I've been sniffing around for classics, essentially. Like, whenever I go to the roast office, and when I go to the library, I always see what classics they have. So I saw this one, so I'm going to read this. Hope I'll like it, but I don't know. I was a little nervous and didn't think I would like it. But I got it. And I can always recheck it out, I can renew it. But all I know is about this guy, who ends up going to both a place with little people, actually little people as in tiny people, and then he also ends up where a place where there's giants. And unfortunately, the most recent remake of this book with Jack Black, it only touched on the little people, and I hear a lot of people complain and say the movie was not that great anyway, which I liked it personally, but I had never read the original material it was based on, so of course, I thought it was cute and funny. But I know there's a miniseries that was made years ago, like back in the 90s, where they actually cover the rest of the book, I think. But, yep, I cannot wait to read this, and I hope I like it, and I'm not bored to death by it. And then I also got a book that I saw there that was one of those Women Prize nominees, I believe. And that is Normal People by Sally Rooney, and I believe this is an Irish author. It got the Man Booker Prize. Unfortunately, I can't see it because it's covered, but it was nominated for the Man Booker Prize. I don't know much about it. I just know that it was one of those book prize winners, and a lot of British booktubers really love this book, and I think the author's Irish. I think it might take place in Ireland. But I think it's one of those coming of age stories about life and stuff like that. I mean, this could actually fit one of the prompts that for 2020's Pop Sugar Reading Challenge, I think. If it's what. But I'm reading it now, so that one, along with, what was the other one? I can't remember what the other one was. The other book I got from the library yesterday, because I got 3. Oh, Practical Magic was the other one I got yesterday. So, now, one last discussion. So, I ended up... Oh, and I also still have this one, short novels by Tolstoy that I gotta read. I put a bookmark in there, but I didn't start it. I meant to start it today when I went to the bookstore, to the roast office. I ended up not starting and focusing more on reading Rose Madder, and I read a couple chapters of and then I also read this one, also, so I have started this one. So I picked this book up because this is one of the many books that I'm thinking that I could eventually, after I've read it, even if I enjoy it, then it might be a book that I would be okay to part with eventually. But this is a retelling of the story of Lady Jane Grey, done in a very comedic format, and with some fantastical elements, particularly people turning into animals. And the authors recently did publish last year. The book was, they basically write about famous Janes, whether they're fiction or historical. So the second one they wrote was My Plain Jane, which is a Jane Eyre retelling. And wherein Jane can see a ghost in that one, and then I believe that Charlotte Bronte is a character in the book. Sorry, I'm talking way too much. And then My Calamity Jane is coming out soon, which is about Calamity Jane, the famous female Western hero. But don't know much about that. Don't know anything about that one yet, except for what it's called and who it's about. But we've basically been, which I didn't realize that I thought Lady Jane Grey was one of the wives of Henry VIII. But she's not. And I thought that because she was another one that she was only a queen for 9 days and lost her head. So I assumed that, she's another one of his wives, because he was known for beheading his wives. But no, she ends up marrying, well, as of right now, it turned out she's gonna marry the son of a duke. The duke, he was, she's been betrothed to a son of a duke who can turn into a horse. Which I think is kind of cool. But, and him and Jane do not want anything to do with each other. They don't want to get married. Edward feels bad and doesn't want to force her to marry, and he kind of has this assumed mentality that they would have eventually gotten married because, of course, it's perfectly normal to marry your cousins. At least in this time period, anyway. And he's basically in, Gifford is his name, or G, as they say. You can call him in the book. And G wants nothing to, like, he kind of, because he doesn't want his family to know about his nighttime activities, he lets them think he's hooking up with a lot of women. When really, I think what I'm getting at is that the whole, like, he maybe goes to kind of this time period's equivalent to a poetry slam. Like, he loves poetry. Which is just interesting because he's like, in his thoughts, he's thinking how it's kind of annoying that Jane constantly has a book in her hand and is always reading, when poetry and novels are kind of part of the same family. And although he did say that the reason he was worried that she always has her nose in a book because she's ugly, because what if she's ugly? She's kind of trying to cover her face, which obviously is not the case. She's this pretty redhead, which apparently it's a weird being a redhead is considered weird in this time. But so far the book is really cute. It has a lot of snarky comments throughout the book, and our characters are very modern in their thinking. Although sometimes it makes me feel like, sometimes I feel like, how do we know that the real people historically wouldn't have similar thoughts to these? They just would put it in a more eloquent way and wouldn't necessarily verbalize it. It's funny though, she keeps obsessing over the fact that she and other people keep talking about how the Gifford family has really long beaky noses, which turns out he turns into a horse, so I'm guessing their noses have something to do with that. That they develop these noses because it's in their genetics to turn into horses. But it's also multi-perspective. You get the perspective of Edward, Jane's cousin, King Edward, who is dying. And then you have the perspective, of course, of Jane herself, and then you have the perspective of G. It's so funny how they're like, oh, you can call him G. His name is so stupid and ridiculous, so just call him G. But I like how basically they doodle in here so that it looks like they doodle in the book as if this were someone's diary or something, or like a doodle you would write in your notebook if you're barely listening to what the teacher has to say. Like how they put the names and stuff like that, and then of course, on the cover, like on the back it says, "The comical, fantastical, romantical, entirely true story of Lady Jane Grey," but in between entirely and true, they have the word, but not really. And there's little hearts there. I think I like how they set up the book. Oh, and then they have pointed, like, priceless, point with an arrow pointing to the price of the book. But, it's just so cute. And I only decided to read this one because I wanted to read Jane Eyre, which, no, just for the record, you don't have to read this one before you read Jane Eyre, because it's about the character of Jane Eyre, and this one is about a totally different character from a different time. So it's more like I used to know the word. I hate when you're trying to think of certain words and then you can't think of that word. I keep getting these messages from Google and they're like, password is required. And I keep just ignoring them. Like, I have no problem getting into my Gmail. And, I hate when you get those notifications where like they keep popping up, even though you ignore them and close out of them. They pop up the next day, every hour or every few hours. It's like so annoying because it's like I have no problem. I have no problem. I mean, I have not come across any things that gave me trouble or anything. But anyway, companion, that's the word I was looking for. It's a companion series where you don't, but it's not even, I guess you can't really call it that either, because it's not like it's a series where characters that are mentioned in this book will be brought up again, because it's a different time period and probably in a different part of England. So in the other one, the next one coming out is not even in England, it's in America. So the western part of America. So I don't technically have to, but I remember hearing about how great it was and everything by people like Haley from Bookland. So I'm gonna, and so far I'm liking it. It's very fun. But like I said, I feel like when I'm done reading it, I'll be able to donate it to the roast office. Okay, so the last thing I want to get into before I say goodbye to you guys is, so I got more. Like I said, I've been on a classics kick and decided to get some more classics. So I didn't find any. Well, I mean, there was one Edith Wharton book, but I'd already read that one from that other collection. And then because Hard Times is on my Amazon wish list, and it's in a certain edition that I really would love to have, I'm not going to get that one. But I did see that one there. It was still there. It probably won't be there after Christmas if I end up not getting that for Christmas. But, so neither one of these were on my list because they are not books that I've ever really, like, one of them I have heard the name at least once. The other one I never really heard of before, but I have heard of the author. So those books are Tom Jones, Penguin Classics Edition, and, which I don't know much about except for it's considered where did Kemet come from? Comedic. It's like trying to mix up comic and comedic. But it's like about this guy that was taken in by this family, kind of adopted or something. That's what the impression I'm getting. The problem with a lot of these classics, sometimes because they are so old and they were considered classics, sometimes there's not an actual description in the book. It just tells you how popular it was or how it wasn't so popular at the time, but now it is, and it made such an impression on society, blah, blah, blah. But I did read the Goodreads review of this one. And this is by Henry Fielding. He's not one of those authors you hear a lot about, but if you're a regular reader of classics, you probably have heard of Henry Fielding. And then the other one that I picked was, I guess maybe this isn't a mass market. I thought it was a mass market, but the other one, let me just close out this stupid message. So the other one is, now I have heard about this author, but Willa Cather's O Pioneers. And I think it's during the time when people were traveling to California, because that's when the pioneers people were, and there's still kind of some stains on it. Which I don't know if that's, but although they're going to, I think, or so according to the description, this young woman finds herself having to take care of her whole family, her family and their farm. She inherits the farm from her father, and it's set in Nebraska. And she's a Swedish immigrant. Oh, that's the person who, how all these books always have like an introduction by a different author. So I was just reading. It's like, that's not the author. It's like, oh wait, that's the introduction person. Although I thought it was maybe this one book wasn't originally in English. I don't know, but I love these the Barnes and Noble editions. I would have had my Peter Pan copy was a Barnes and Noble one. Actually, I still have it because it's in the I put it in that box of books that I want to keep, that I just want to take on my shelf, but I want to save it for some. Like, I'm really hoping that eventually I will. I mean, it probably won't happen until like I'm one day living on my own, but I would like to one day be able to have that space with those books like on a different their own shelf or something, like books that. But my Peter Pan edition was a Barnes and Noble one, and it was also brown. Apparently, there was quite a few books that are brown. But I don't know. I guess I kind of like this how they're all different colors. I mean, there's nothing really special. They're all they all the same typography, and they have the Barnes and Noble little symbol down here, so they're not anything special. I think it's just the whole color. They're all different colors, and sometimes they have really pretty pictures for. Like this one, what's nice is this one looks like a piece of art. Actually, it looks like artwork, like a painting. I kind of like that. I kind of have a soft spot for covers that are like paintings or but and these, of course, these are ones that have commentaries and viewpoints and notes and stuff in the back and discussion questions. And it doesn't look that long either, so. Okay, so I am done rambling and chatting with you guys about and updating you on what's going on with my books. Now I need to run before it gets too dark, before the sun starts setting. So I'm gonna prepare. I'm gonna go for my run, and then when I get back, I will just chill out, maybe get a little more reading done. And if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already and you like the video and like my other videos. And I hope you guys are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to y'all later. Alright, bye!